The Aztec Coaches Show is brought to you by Quality First Real Estate. For residential real estate needs, it's Quality First at QualityFirstRealEstate.com. Proud sponsor of Aztec Athletics. Hooley's Irish Pub and Grill, San Diego's most authentic Irish pub and grill, and proud host of the Aztec Coaches Show. And by Quality First Commercial Real Estate. For commercial real estate needs, it's Quality First at QualityFirstCommercial.com. Proud sponsor of Aztec Athletics. Now, live from Hooley's Irish Pub and Grill, it's the Aztec Coaches Show. Here's your host, Chris Ello.
And it's Wednesday night. It must be Hooley's Irish Pub and Grill in Grossmont Center. Let's hear it out there, red and black fans. San Diego State football program. Time to visit with Coach Rocky Long tonight from Hooley's Irish Pub and Grill, the official sponsor for the Aztec Coaches Show. Hooley's home to the famous corned beef tacos and other award-winning menu items. And, of course, Wednesday nights throughout this entire football season, Hooley's in Grossmont Center, where we have Coach Rocky Long live on site for our radio show. Also, you can enjoy it on AM 600 Kogo or on the internet, anywhere that you might be around the world. I should have tuned in last week when I was in China, Coach. I should have tuned in. I don't know if I could have matched up the times properly, but I should have tuned in and watched. I heard you and Ben Higgins had a nice time last week. So
yeah, but
it's
we
good to
missed
be back.
you. We missed you.
It's good to be back. No question about it. You got TCU coming up on Saturday night. We're going to talk a lot about that game, and I think a little bit less about the Michigan game because you already went through all that last week. But I think anytime you have a bye week, people want to know, is it any different? Do you do anything any differently? What did you guys do during the bye week? A little extra film work, a little less, a little more? How do you handle it all?
Well, the way we handle it is that we took the 3 days and went back to training camp. We were in full pads all 3 days. We went for 2 hours every day. We went the one offense against the one defense, the two offense against the two defense, and then all the rest of them scrimmaged toward the end of the day. So basically we went back to training camp. And now we would spend about 20 minutes a day on a preliminary game plan for TCU. So it wasn't exactly like training camp, but we did a bunch of things we did in training camp, try to get the fundamentals back to where they belong, try to get we don't want to miss out on game speed, so you try to get game speed in practice by ones against ones, and then you give them Saturday off. And so they're not beat up from a game on Saturday, so they come back to practice a little fresher and a little more energetic, and hopefully that carries over so they play better.
And then you have a regular work week this week. You do everything this week the exact same you would do before any normal Saturday game then?
We do, but this week is a little bit different. We're still practicing the same number of days. The practice schedule is basically the same. We've cut practice 20 minutes a day, because we play Air Force 5 days after we play TCU. So you have to kind of take the two games as one on the preparation, because you don't want to spend all this time working on TCU and then not have a chance to play well against Air Force 2. So it's not scientific, but I've done it before, and it's a calculated risk that you shorten practices a little bit this week.
Well, Air Force, the one good news, and we'll talk about, next Wednesday night we'll actually be in Colorado Springs getting ready for that Air Force game, which, as you mentioned, is going to be a Thursday night game. But this is a pretty strange way to do a schedule. I mean, you don't normally have bye week and then two games in 5 or 6 days. That's pretty odd. And then after you play Air Force, you got 16 days off until your next game. So it's a weird stretch that you're going through right now.
Yeah, it's different than I've ever been through before. Now, I've been through playing on Saturday and then playing the next Thursday. I've done that a couple of times, and I know the first time I went through it, we practiced exactly the same way we normally did, the same number of periods, the same time on the field and everything for the Saturday game. And we played okay in the Saturday game, but then the next Thursday we played really poorly. We looked tired, we looked worn out, we looked beat up. So when you have this, you got to have a plan to prepare for both games at the same time. Now, the 16 days after that, I've never been through that.
16 days.
I've never had that much time off before. I mean, it's.
What are we going to talk about, Coach?
I don't know, but it's going to be weird. And now it is right in the middle of the season. So we play 6 games, then we get the 16-day bye week. So it's going to be starting the second half of the season and fresh and all new again. And, you know, one of our primary goals is to get to a bowl game, and it being right in the middle of the season is probably the best time to have it. Yeah.
Right. 3-1 right now. I think overall you're happy with that, but whenever the one is the last game that you played, then the old saying, you're only as good as your last time at bat. Have you spent time the last week and a half or so, or since the Michigan game, trying to remind your guys, trying to drill into your guys, hey, we're a good football team. We're more like the 3-0 team than we are like the team that lost the game at Michigan?
No, we try to put the Michigan game behind us and move on and start getting ready for the next game, but no one will let us forget it. I mean, when we went into the season, you have great expectations and you have great hopes, but you really never know how it's going to turn out until you actually start playing. You really don't know how good you are. You really don't know how good your opponents are until you start playing the games. We put a lot of emphasis on our first game because of the history of the series with Cal Poly.
Yeah.
And that was probably really more important than people gave it credit for. When you look at the history, we had to win that game. So I think there was a lot of pressure on that game. I thought the team played really well considering going all the way back east and playing Army at Army and some of the locker room problems and the travel problems. I thought they played well and showed some real character by winning that game. And then I thought the best we played all year was the second half of the third quarter and the fourth quarter against Washington State. And everybody says it was a lower division Pac-10 school or Pac-12 school now. Yeah. But I guess what? They're still winning. I mean, it's not like they were a pretty good football team. And I think that's the best we played. And I hate to admit this because we preached against it forever that the Michigan game wasn't any different than anybody else. But I think our players got caught up in the hype. Not that they weren't ready to play, but what happened, I said this when I first got the job, my biggest worry was our players would be too excited about playing that game.
Yeah.
And I think that's what happened. I think they got so excited about playing the game, they forgot about how you prepare, how you act, how you do things, because to be a consistent football team, you got to do things the same way every week, no matter who you play. And I think we got too excited about this stadium, playing against their former coach, national TV, all that, and I think they got too excited. And we played hard. We tried really, really hard, but we didn't play well.
Yeah.
It's disappointing.
After the game against Michigan, and you didn't let the players speak to the media, and I tell you what, it's nice that they're writing columns about you, but I think there was 2 different columns that were written about that, your decision to not have your players talk to the media after that Michigan game. Wanted to give you a spot here to just kind of talk about why you did that. I can kind of understand it. I think you were kind of tired of everybody asking them about Michigan, and you knew that was going to be the same old questions after the game once it was over.
Well, I've answered this question. I mean, you were out of the country, but I've answered it about 50 times, so I don't feel like doing it anymore.
Okay. All right, so let's move on
past
that.
Yeah, let's move on.
All right, well, we'll move on. We got TCU coming up on Saturday night. When we come back with the coach, Rocky Long, we will take a look ahead at the Aztecs game against the Horned Frogs. Not a bad football team, TCU, ranked number 2 in the nation last year, undefeated champions of the Rose Bowl. They come into Qualcomm Stadium for a 7:30 game. We want to thank our friends at Quality First Real Estate, San Diego's top real estate company. We can help you buy, sell, and manage San Diego real estate. When it comes to real estate, it's always Quality First. Click qualityfirstrealestate.com. The Aztec Coaches Show, Chris Ello along with Rocky Long. We're coming back to Grossmont Center, Hooley's Irish Pub and Grill in just a moment, right here on AM 600 Kogo.
You want to...
Hooley's Irish Pub and Grill in Rancho San Diego, and of course this great location in Grossmont Center has award-winning food, great draft and bottled beer selections, and fantastic happy hour specials too. Click Hoolies.com for directions and more. Hooley's, the official host location of the Aztec Football Coaches Show, and we welcome everybody to Hooley's tonight for this week's edition with the head coach Rocky Long. I am Chris Ello, and the Aztecs getting set now at 3-1 to take on the 3-2 TCU Horned Frogs on Saturday night. Let's talk a little bit about this game coming up on Saturday night, Coach. You've already been quoted as saying that you think TCU is a better team than Michigan, despite the fact that they've lost 2 games this year. They were certainly far superior to Michigan last year, but it's a little bit different look, I guess, for TCU. I mean, they've lost their senior leader at quarterback. They've lost some of the players on defense. but this is the fastest team you're going to play, and I know that that's something that's probably near the top of your concern list.
You're right. I think that the only difference between this TCU team and last year's is they lost several seniors. I think this TCU team is just as talented, just as skilled, just as big, just as strong, and just as fast. But they had some real key seniors on that team last year, so they're a little inexperienced. I also think that they've played against a couple really good offensive football teams, and that's the 2 games they lost. The other teams just outscored them. I mean, they scored almost every time they had the ball. TCU tried to match them. In fact, in the SMU game, they took it to overtime. SMU beat them in overtime, and then if everybody remembers, that's one of the best games I've ever watched on TV. If they watched the Baylor TCU game on TV, boy, that was a great football game. That ball was moving up and down the field. But they're a quality program. They've got a great coach. They're one of the elite programs in the country right now because of recruiting. They play well on both offense and defense, and I mean, you said it. They're the fastest team we've played so far, and they'll be the fastest team we play all year.
As somebody who's coached defense and loves defense and still coaches defense, obviously, along with being the head coach, can you appreciate TCU's defense and give us a little insight into what makes them so good on defense, or at least what made them so dominant last year on defense, and it hasn't been as consistent for them yet this year?
Yeah, well, certainly. Number one, you've heard me talk about defense. I think quickness and speed is much more important on defense now than size and strength. Now, if you can have a great big guy that runs fast and moves really quick, that's what you really want, and that's what they draft in the first round in the NFL. But speed and quickness, because everybody is going to the spread offense, and they're spreading you from sideline to sideline, and they're trying to get a lot of one-on-one matchups. Well, a lot of teams, when they play spread teams, go to nickel defense. There are some teams, including us and TCU, that have been playing nickel defense for the last 15 years. And you have to adjust it to the teams that want to run the ball at you. They want to put 2 tight ends in there and 2 backs. You have to adjust those defenses to play the teams that want to pound the ball. But the 3 down linemen, 3 linebackers, and 5 DBs that we play matches up against spread offenses better than a normal 4 defensive back defense. Well, they're in a 4 defensive lineman, 2 linebacker, 5 DB defense. So it's a little bit different than ours because they use 4 down guys. The strength of their defense has always been speed. They can run the ball. They can run down even the fastest guy that the offensive have. And what they've done is they've recruited a lot of really good athletes that play different positions in high school. They recruit 6 to 8 running backs a year. Well, in a lot of high school teams, the best player on the team is the running back. Well, and then they get them there and they find out who the best running back is, and he gets to play running back, and then the other 7 play someplace else. They've had 2 all-conference defensive ends that were drafted in the NFL, now playing the NFL, that came to TCU as running backs. So what they have is great athletes on the defensive line that rush the passer really well and can chase a guy down. They have running backs and those kind of athletes at linebacker. Then they have great speed in the secondary. So they blitz a lot, they stun a lot, and they play a lot of man coverage. Does that sound familiar?
Sounds pretty familiar, and I think maybe that's why the TCU San Diego State game last year was really one of the great games of the year as well. I mean, I marveled at the way San Diego State, you guys came back in that football game down there in Fort Worth in their final game ever played in their stadium before they redid it, and all the emotion that went into that game. And I don't think anybody gave you half a chance to win that game, and you were down big. And then in the fourth quarter, Lindley and everybody led you back, and you caught within 5 points, end up losing 40-35. I don't know that they gave up 35 points the rest of the season, but you guys put 35 up on them last year. Are you the kind of coach that takes anything at all from last year's game and hopes to apply it to this year's game, or is this 2 completely different animals?
It's completely different, I think. Last year we got back in the game because we had great skill at wide receiver, and then Ryan got hot and threw it to our 2 NFL wide receivers that are playing in the NFL now.
Yeah.
And those guys made some great plays to get us back in the game. Now, there was a time that in the second half, to allow us to get back in the game, we started playing a little bit better defense. In the first half and partway through the third quarter, I think we went 9 series on offense that were 3 and out.
Yeah.
that we had to punt, which is not a good way to score any points. But we got hot. We got hot at the end, and mostly it was Ryan throwing to our two guys that are now in the NFL. I think that overall our teams match up better this year than they did last year because I think we're a little bit faster. I think we're a little bit more skilled at some key spots. I still think that they have a little bit of an edge because of their athletic ability and because they're used to winning all the time. And when teams win all the time, when they lose, it bothers them so much and bugs them so much that they really seem to play well the next week. It's already happened to them when they lost by 1 or 2 to Baylor. The next week they played the best game of the year at Air Force and beat up on Air Force. Right. So they're going to come in with their A game, and we better have our A game. I think it's going to be a great game. I don't really want to say I think it's going to be a shootout. Which really bugs you when you love defense.
You don't
really,
like that word too much.
Yeah, it really bugs you if it's a shootout. But as long as we end up with one more point than them, that'd be okay with me too.
Rocky, TCU, as you said, they've become used to winning. They've become one of the better programs in the nation over the last several years. They've been in the top 10 in the rankings. They've been playing in BCS bowls. How did they get from where they were to there? I mean, and I guess that's kind of the age-old question, because I know that there's a lot of San Diego State fans out there that say, well, we saw TCU do it. We've seen Boise State do it. We'd like to believe that San Diego State could do the same thing. How do you get from one place to the next?
Well, I believe San Diego State can be the same way too.
Yeah.
But I think it takes a little bit of time, and I think they had a good coaching staff that did a great job of evaluating talent in a football rich or a football king society in Texas. There's a lot of high school football players in Texas, and TCU did a great job of evaluating talent. They improved their talent level over years. And then once they got the talent level to a certain spot, they did a great job of coaching them. And so if you have really talented players and you coach them really well, guess what? You win a whole bunch of games. So I think they've done that at Boise too. And I don't think when they started they were getting all the 5-star recruits. I think they did a great job of going down there and recruiting the 3-star recruits, and did such a good job of evaluating their 3-star recruits turned into really good players where you could get a 3-star recruit that doesn't. Of course, you can get a 5-star recruit that doesn't turn into a good player.
Right.
But they did a great job of evaluating, and then they did a great job of coaching them. And I think their formula, we're trying to do the same formula here. I think their formula of recruiting great athletes and then sticking them all over on your team. Now, sometimes a running back doesn't want to play defensive end, and it takes you a year and a half to get them to play defensive end. But if you recruit good athletes, they will improve your team no matter where they play.
Confidence-wise, they're coming off of the loss. You said that scares you because they're the kind of team that's used to winning and gets really ticked off when they lose. Where do you feel your team is confidence-wise coming off of the loss to Michigan?
I think we're a confident football team. I think that the week off gave our team a time to reflect, and I truly believe they think they blew a good opportunity in the last game, and I think they think that they did it because they didn't prepare the same way and didn't react the same way as they did the first 3 weeks. So, and I've listened to them talk to the press, and I've read what they said, and TCU, in my opinion, is a better football team than Michigan, and our team is not treating them like they're a better football team than Michigan. They're treating them like they're the next one on our schedule, and let's play and see what happens.
Likes the attitude. Rocky Long, I like the attitude too. It should be a heck of a football game Saturday night, 7:30 right here on AM 600 Kogo when the Aztecs take on TCU. You play at all kinds of times, by the way, 9 o'clock in the morning, then the next game is at 7:30 at night. So you run the gamut already the first half of this season. Tickets are still available, by the way, for this Saturday's game as the Aztecs take on the TCU Horned Frogs. Final time, TCU comes in as a member of the Mountain West Conference. Tickets for the game start at only $11. As I mentioned, kickoff is at 7:30. It's also homecoming weekend at San Diego State, and the first 28,000 fans through the gates are going to receive a Marshall Faulk number 28 hat commemorating his Pro Football Hall of Fame induction earlier this year. You can still purchase tickets for the Aztec-TCU game by calling 619-283-SDSU or log on to GoAztecs. We're going to take a quick time out for a Kogo news update. Polly's out there in the audience here at Hooley's Irish Pub and Grill. We'll get some questions from you folks for the coach, Rocky Long, when we come back. The Aztec Football Coaches Show from Learfield Sports and AM 600 Kogo. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Aztec Coaches Show, kicking off the second half of tonight's get-together with Aztec head coach Rocky Long. We are live at Hooley's Irish Pub and Grill in Grossmont Center, and, of course, on the radio on AM 600 Kogo. If you have a question for the coach, now would be the time to call in, 858-569-TALK, and that'll get you through to the program. And I know that Polly always lines up some questions. We want to remind all the Aztec fans, don't forget that the Warrior Walk will take place at 5:30 this Saturday evening. Be part of this tradition when the team makes the walk into Qualcomm Stadium. It gets started in the E3 and F3 parking area and finishes in the Aztec Village in parking area F1. So be sure to get to the game early, be part of this fan favorite event, cheer on the team as they prepare for the Horned Frogs of TCU. And Coach, I know you're looking for a real nice home field advantage in this game on Saturday night. I think you kind of hit it on the nail on the head about the Washington State game. You guys got better as that game went on. Maybe one of the reasons why is because more people kept coming into the stadium as that game went on a couple of weeks ago.
Well, I mean, I've said this several times since that game that's in the 2.5 years I've been here, that's the first time I ever felt that we had a home field advantage. I thought we had a great crowd for the bowl game, but when you looked in the stands, half of them were for Navy.
Yeah, right.
You know, so you could tell in this game that the majority of the fans there for the Aztecs, and I really think it made a difference. I thought the energy in the stadium was great. I thought the enthusiasm of the student section and everybody else was unbelievable. And when we got down in the third quarter, it's amazing the difference the energy in a stadium can make to the home team. And I thought it got us over the hump. I thought it got us going. I thought it helped us get to the part where we started playing well. And boy, it'd be nice if it was like that. There's a lot of teams that have unbelievable records at home, and a lot of it has to do with the kind of crowd support you get. So.
I think it really, especially maybe even more so in college sports than pro sports, right? I mean, college sports seems to be built a little bit more on emotion of the kids and the confidence of the kids than it does at the pro level. I don't know if you want to make a comparison to the two, but, you know, we saw it with the Aztec basketball team last year and the way it was at Viejas Arena. And, I mean, those kids would go out on the floor, and they were world beaters before the game ever even started, just with the atmosphere. And I think we're starting to build a little bit more and more of that at Qualcomm Stadium for football.
Well, I know the Washington State game was awesome.
Yeah.
And if we could have that again or close to that again, it would make a difference in the game against TCU, I promise you.
Where did Polly go? Where's Polly? Does she have the microphone? Did she? Where's Polly? I was looking for some questions for the coach here. Polly, where are you, dear? There she is. Do we have any questions for Coach Rocky Long here tonight, or do you want me to just keep it? Nobody's brave enough to ask the coach any questions tonight about the TCU game. This is like, come on, it's the biggest game, one of the biggest games of the year.
It's hard to ask a question when you didn't play last week.
Yeah, they didn't play last week. They don't have anything to be critical of. Is that the way it is? Do you, Coach? I mean, do you talk about this being the conference opener as well? I mean, it certainly is the conference opener. So, along with being a chance to go up against a big time team in TCU and get a big win for your program, it's a chance to go 1-0 in the conference. And ultimately, I think when you kick off every season, right, that's the goal, is to win a conference championship. You guys could get a leg up by beating these guys.
Yeah, I agree with you. We talked a lot about it. The number one goal in our program is to be the Mountain West Conference champions. And that means you have to win all of them, or at least most of them, to have a chance to win it. And we're starting out with two of the better teams in our league, too, with TCU and Air Force. I hate to keep bringing Air Force into that, but as a team and as a program, we're counting this as a two-game series like they do in baseball, and we got to try to come out on the end, the right end of it in both games. But TCU's the number one up, and we have to be ready for that one. And we do talk a lot about when we're going to win a championship. San Diego State has won 18 conference championships. I don't know if anybody out there knew that.
Yeah.
And we talk about the 18 championships daily before practice, and we talk about working on the 19th one.
Yeah, and it's been a little while since the last conference championship, so it would be special, and this would be a great way to start things off against TCU. Tell us a little bit about the health of your football team with the bye week. I know that let me see, it was your middle linebacker, Rob Andrews, got nicked up in the last game, but everybody else is pretty much okay, ready to go?
Yeah, we've got some guys that are nursing some injuries. We got and I don't want to tell you who they are because
right.
There are teams that might be listening, and not that we would ever teach this, but when a guy's a little banged up, there are players sometimes that will try to take advantage of that.
I've never heard of such things.
Yeah, we have a offensive lineman that's got a bad shoulder. I'm not going to tell you which one, but he seems to be fine. We have a very good player on defense that's still hobbling a little bit on an ankle. But overall, for playing 4 games, we're in pretty good shape, pretty good health. A lot of teams are a lot worse than we are. They've lost a lot of really good players along the way, and if we can stay healthy, it gives you a real step forward on the rest of the season. The teams that seem to win championships are the teams that don't lose their good players.
Yeah, it's funny how that works out that
really,
way.
It's really funny
it's
how that
always funny
works.
how that works out that way. Yeah. And at the end of the season, people never remember that either. You know, they don't remember that you maybe went 5-7 one year because you were playing with your 3rd-string quarterback and your 4th-string running back. They don't seem to remember those kinds of things.
Well, they don't want to hear that either.
No.
And you know, as a program, we don't want to make excuses either. And you never go into a game with an excuse on your mind. But if you keep most of your real good players healthy, it's amazing how much better season you have.
Did you, going back to the Michigan game quickly again, you talk a little bit about the frustration you guys had of getting into Michigan territory as often as you did and the opportunities you had to score, and how, I mean, you and I were talking just a little bit before about how the guys really felt like they let a game, an opportunity slip away from them. And that is something that can either compound itself, I guess, or it is something that can be used as great motivation for the upcoming game. How have you guys handled that since the Michigan game?
Well, I mean, that was the good part about the bye week. You didn't talk about it, but that gave them more time to get over it than you would normally have to get over it. I think now we would have done this anyway. You know, I don't want to take credit for a coaching decision, but because we'd have done this anyway. It's amazing how the first 4 games don't matter when you go back to training camp. And for 3 days, we basically went back to training camp.
Interesting.
So if you go back to training camp, which means you do fundamental work, it means you do inside drill, which is just offensive linemen and defensive linemen and running backs. You do 1s against 1s in a scrimmage situation, 2s against 2s in a scrimmage situation. All of a sudden, they think they're back in training camp and a new season is starting.
Well, that's a good idea. Good thinking, Coach. I've always said you were one of the smartest coaches around.
I told you we would have done that either way.
But you would have done it either way. But it turned out to be at a very beneficial time for you. Ryan Lindley, senior year. I know he wants to beat TCU very, very badly, and I know that he felt bad about his performance against Michigan. Take us through. And again, it wasn't a bad performance. It just wasn't up to the standards that we've seen from Ryan Lindley, and I think that he expects a little bit more from himself, and I think that's what's made him such a great quarterback. Feel him having a pretty nice bounce-back performance this Saturday?
I think Ryan's going to play well. I think he's going to have a really good game. I was asked after the game about Ronnie Hillman. Well, what are you going to say to Ronnie Hillman? What are you going to say to Ryan Lindley? And I said, I'm probably not going to say much to him other than how to improve, because when you're that good a player and you're that competitive like Ryan is, and Ronnie Hillman's a great competitor too. When you're that good a player and you're that good a competitor, guess what? You're harder on yourself than anybody else can be, and you're going to evaluate your performance and be more critical than anybody else can, and then you're going to work harder to try to keep that from ever happening again. So when you have a motivated guy and a mature guy like Ryan Lindley, other than pointing out some things he might not see himself, I mean, you don't have to worry about him. He wants to win as bad as anybody. I mean, he wants to win as bad or more so than anybody that's watching him play, anybody that's coaching him. He wants to win, and he knows he didn't play up to his own standards, so he's going to be ready. He's going to have a good game.
You don't need to mention it to him. When Ronnie Hillman, on the 2 fumbles by Ronnie Hillman, which is something that we haven't seen, was there anything that technically that he did that needed to be corrected on those 2 fumbles, or were those just one of those situations where every now and again the ball's going to pop out?
Well, you have to give other people credit. No, number one, the first fumble he had, the guy did a great job of pulling it out. He had it secured. The guy did a great job of pulling it out. Now, the one where he breaks a long run and gets hit from behind, now this is just my opinion. I don't know. I don't know if Ronnie Hillman's ever got caught from behind.
Nah.
And getting hit from the backside when you think you're in the clear and getting ready to score a touchdown and you're not ready to get hit, guess what? There's fumbles that happen.
Yeah.
Now, in my day when I played, I was used to getting caught from behind, so I knew how to hold on to the ball.
You were looking over your shoulder.
Even when I was in the open, but I'm not sure anybody's caught Ronnie from behind before, and so I think it was a surprise hit and the ball popped out.
Your wide receivers both had good games statistically. Colin Lockett and Dylan Denso both caught 7 balls against Michigan, career highs. Rate their performance in the Michigan game and how your wide receivers are coming along right now.
Well, I try to always be positive. I think our wide receivers are getting better, but they're still very inconsistent. They had decent games in the Michigan game. There was a couple other throws that could have been caught that could have changed the momentum of that game. I remember one fade route or streak route down the sidelines that you can't throw that ball any better than that. And it was a tough catch. It wasn't real hard. It wasn't easy catch, but it should have been caught, and it could have made a huge difference in the game. I think we're improving. The 2 spots that we need to get better fast are at wide receiver and defensive line. Our wide receivers are getting better daily. They get better daily. They get better game to game. But for us to be considered as good as we want to be and have a chance to win the conference championship, we got to get better quicker at wide receiver, and we got to get better quicker in the defensive line. We're playing a lot of young defensive linemen, too, and guess what? Sometimes they look really good. And then sometimes they're getting beat around and knocked around that makes it really hard to play good defense. Other people have young players, too.
That's right.
It's time. They've played 4 games. It's time for them to have matured. That young stuff does not work anymore.
No more. We're on into the second month of the season, and it kicks off Saturday night at 7:30. The Aztecs taking on TCU. The Aztec Coaches Show with Rocky Long. If you are interested in buying, selling, or leasing a commercial property, Quality First Commercial is a full-service commercial real estate firm. Visit our website, qualityfirstcommercial.com. QFC is here for all of your commercial real estate needs. We are here for one final segment of the Aztec Coaches Show with Rocky Long, live from Hooley's Irish Pub and Grill in Grossmont Center. You people out there tonight are disappointing me a little bit. You got one more segment. Somebody's got to come up with at least one question for Coach Rocky Long when we come back on Learfield Sports on AM 600 Kogo. All right, folks, we got to finish up strong. Fourth quarter from Hooley's Irish Pub and Grill in Grossmont Center, the Aztec Football Coaches Show. Chris Ello along with the head coach of the Aztecs, Rocky Long. Don't forget, it is coming up. Saturday night, 7:30 kickoff. The Aztecs and TCU Horned Frogs coming up from Qualcomm Stadium, and we'll have our pregame show getting underway at 6:30. We've talked a little bit about your offensive guys, some of your defensive guys. Obviously, Larry Parker, very nice story on Larry in the newspaper this week. And the kind of impact that he has had the last couple of weeks. We talked about him after the Washington State game when he had a couple of interceptions, but he came back and made a bunch of big plays for you again in the Michigan game. And I think if there's one thing you had to be happy with defensively in the Michigan game was how you guys got better, stronger as the game went on, and the fact that you forced 4 turnovers. I mean, when you guys hit them, you were bringing some wood a little bit.
Yeah, I've been happy with the way we've been aggressive. We play hard. And we will, if we get you lined up now, we miss some tackles. We probably miss more tackles than we should, but if we get you lined up, we'll try to hit you. And the best thing we've been doing on defense all year is causing turnovers. We give up some big plays, and the way we play defense, we take some chances, and we're going to give up some big plays on defense. I think we're giving up too many. We're not making enough big plays on defense to offset the good plays that we're giving up on the other team's offense. So, but the turnovers are a positive, and I think that's the biggest change we've made over the last 2 years on defense. I think when I first got here, we wanted to grab a hold of you and drag you to the ground, and I think now we want to hit you, and that's what this game's all about, is hitting each other.
Well, turnovers right now, you guys have forced 12 and you've only committed 5. So you're +7 in the turnover ratio through 4 games. That's pretty impressive. Ryan Lindley's got 8 touchdown passes, only 1 interception. I think that's spectacular, especially since he likes to go down the field. He doesn't dink and dunk very much. So in that category, you guys have played well, and you've done some very nice things. Defensively, you just talked about giving up too many big plays. Is that correctable? The Denard Robinson, for instance, the 53-yard touchdown run where he went untouched. Is that because they did an amazing job blocking that play, or did you guys mess up?
Well, I wish you wouldn't have brought that one up, but
that wasn't one of your favorites. I imagine.
No, because I think that was a coaching error. They ran a play that we hadn't seen them run, so we hadn't practiced against it. So we got lined up a little bit wrong on defense for the play, and that's no fault of the players, because if the player has been prepared properly and he would have lined up right. Now, Denard Robinson might have made us miss anyway. That's beside the point. But that one, they blocked us really well, and we were lined up maybe a half a man wrong on defense because they hadn't been prepared for that play. And now you need a guy to make a special play where he does something that he's out of position to do to make the tackle. Well, in that game, there were several times we were in perfect position and lined up exactly right and still couldn't tackle that guy.
Yeah.
So
and you talked about that going into the game, what an amazing athlete he was, and he certainly put it on display for all of us to see in that game in Michigan. Robinson is one of the best runners in the entire country. There's no question about that. I thought Logan Ketchum, he was a guy whose name we called quite a bit in that game a couple of Saturdays ago in Michigan. Stood out, played very well for you, linebacker. Again, I don't get to look at the film. I call the game along with Ted Leitner. But I like to see Logan Ketchum's name get popping up there a little bit because we know what Miles Burris is going to do. We've already talked a little bit about Jake Feely. Nice to have that third linebacker step up. I thought he played well. Am I right?
Yeah, Logan's been playing well the whole year, and you would expect that out of a senior. I mean, he understands our defense really well. He can diagnose what they're trying to do on offense most of the time. I mean, we've had some guys really play well. Larry Parker, you mentioned Larry Parker. Jerome Long's really played well up front. You mentioned Miles, you mentioned Jake, you mentioned Logan. Leon McFadden's playing really well. Nat Bearhay is playing really well. You notice I didn't mention any of those true freshman defensive linemen playing really well. So
Not yet anyway.
Not yet.
But now that we're into the second month of the season, they don't get to be young defensive linemen anymore, right?
Well, that's what they've been being told the last 2 weeks in practice, too.
That's right. All right. Hey, we got a moment here to remind you of our California Bank and Trust Student Athlete of the Week this week. And, of course, California Bank and Trust is always proud to recognize San Diego State's outstanding student athletes. This week's California Bank and Trust Student Athlete of the Week is soccer player Jordan Ongaro. Jordan was named the man of the match for his outstanding performance during San Diego State's home win over Cal on Sunday, October the 2nd. He had the game-winning goal during the 85th minute of play, and he was the only goal scorer in the Aztecs' 2-1 victory. Ongaro's game winner increased the men's soccer team's unbeaten streak to 7 games and moved them to 2-0 in Pac-12 play. So congratulations to the Aztec men's soccer team and Jordan Ongaro, this week's California Bank and Trust Student Athlete of the Week. Do you, since nobody had any questions for you today, do you have any questions for us?
I don't have any questions, but we can talk about our soccer team. Our soccer team, I didn't hear that in there. Maybe I wasn't listening close enough, but there's 3 different polls that rank the Division I soccer teams across the country, and our team's in the top 25 in all 3 polls.
Nicely done. Cool. Nice to hear that. Congratulations, man. The soccer team's playing well. The football team, you guys could be joining the top 25 pretty soon with this 2-game series coming up against TCU and then next week against Air Force. We want to thank everybody at Hooley's Irish Pub and Grill. Of course, Craig, thank you very much for hosting us as he does every single week. Craig, thank you very much. Our on-site engineer, the great one, Mr. Kevin Boyle over here. From our promotion staff, Tiffany and her band of magic performers back there. Thank you guys for everything that you guys do. Scott Horvath manning our camera. Polly running down and getting questions, even though you guys didn't have any this week. Next week, you'll have to have double the questions. For the coach, Rocky Long, I'm Chris Sello saying so long, the Aztec Coaches Show from Hooley's Irish Pub and Grill on Learfield Sports and AM 600 Kogo. Good night, everyone.